On the early morning of November 30th, 2025, just minutes after sunrise, Buckingham Palace sent out a statement that immediately reverberated around the globe. Meghan Markle was no longer the Duchess of Sussex. The announcement was cold, brief, and utterly devoid of explanation, yet it marked only the surface of a far deeper and darker story. Behind the palace walls, tensions, betrayals, and heartbreak had been simmering for years, hidden from the public eye, and now they were beginning to surface. After enduring countless attacks, public scrutiny, and humiliations, King Charles finally made a decision that would shock the world. That morning, Sir Clive Caldwell, newly appointed as Lord Chamberlain, appeared alone before the press. There was no ceremony, no grand display of royal tradition, no other members of the family present, just one man, one microphone, and 19 words that would forever change history. Meghan Markle's title as Duchess of Sussex had been revoked, effective immediately by order of His Majesty the King. No reasoning, no apology, no emotional pretense, just an unflinching, irrevocable declaration. Millions around the world paused in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the abruptness and severity of the news. But what made this decision truly chilling was that it had not been made on a whim. It was the result of years of observation, consideration, and inevitability. What had been hidden behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, the private conflicts, the untold betrayals, the heartbreaks that the public could never imagine, had finally reached a breaking point. By the time the world absorbed the news, the consequences were already set in motion, forever altering the narrative of the royal family and revealing a story far more complex and devastating than anyone had ever been told. The decision had been forged in silence for months. While Meghan and Harry were busy with interviews, launching projects, and building their brand in California, King Charles was quietly, methodically, and deliberately preparing for this exact moment. The lack of spectacle was intentional. There were no flags, no balcony appearances, no traditional royal pageantry accompanying the announcement. Every element of ceremony deliberately removed. King Charles didn't want a performance. He wanted resolution. That strategic silence was the monarchy's way of speaking volumes without raising its voice. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming control. For years, the royal family had weathered the storm of departures, interviews, Netflix series, and relentless public scrutiny, maintaining their dignity, silence, and a steadfast commitment to never complain or explain. But now, the House of Windsor was no longer simply responding, it was drawing a clear line in the sand. On one side stood centuries of tradition, duty, and service. On the other, a former actress who had transformed royalty into a brand. The question then was what finally pushed King Charles to act, to break decades of silence in such a public and devastating way. The answer lay in the signature that changed everything. According to palace sources, the decree revoking Meghan's title was not delegated to a courtier, ceremonial board, advisors, or legal teams. King Charles signed it himself. To grasp the weight of this, consider that he handles hundreds of documents daily, most of which are managed by aides, but for this single decisive action, he took the pen personally. The symbolism was unmistakable. This was not mere protocol, not routine procedure, but a deeply personal statement. Buckingham Palace's communications carefully framed it as necessary to safeguard the dignity of the institution, rather than as a punitive act. Yet the reality was clear: when a king personally strips his daughter-in-law of her royal title, breaks long-standing tradition to make the announcement, and leaves no room for ambiguity, it is a message of profound personal resolve. And the truth is, this decision didn't emerge overnight. It was the culmination of months of planning, observation, and deliberation, a moment years in the making that forever altered the narrative of the royal family. The decision emerged from a meticulous investigation that uncovered a pattern of behavior the monarchy could no longer ignore. According to insider sources, senior advisors conducted a detailed internal audit, examining Meghan's public commentary, commercial ventures, and her use of royal associations. What they discovered wasn't merely problematic, it was, in their words, actively undermining the institution. This wasn't a scandal. It was a quiet, persistent, and calculated erosion of everything the monarchy represents. Once King Charles saw the full scope of what was happening, there was no turning back. Behind the palace walls, while the world was focused on Meghan's Netflix series and new ventures, a covert operation codenamed Order 17A was quietly unfolding. Hidden deep inside St. James's Palace, in a locked room few staff would ever see, a legal maneuver of unprecedented scale was taking shape. Order 17A was not born from vengeance or haste, but from constitutional foresight and a desperate need to preserve the monarchy's authority in a modern age. For over a year, aides compiled evidence, Every use of the Sussex title in contracts, merchandise filings, digital platforms, and interviews leveraging royal connections was documented, painting a damning picture of royalty being commodified rather than honored. At the center of it all was Lady Margaret Ashcombe, a formidable legal mind and archivist of the Crown, whose cold, clinical approach left no room for sentiment. Working alongside Princess Anne, who had long warned of these risks, they formed a clandestine committee charged with redefining the boundaries of royal legitimacy. The meetings, the late-night strategy sessions, and the weight of knowing they were creating a document that could fundamentally alter the monarchy's operation all culminated in Order 17A, a revolutionary legal framework designed to safeguard centuries of tradition while addressing modern threats to the Crown's integrity. Order 17A included sweeping provisions, new protocols for reviewing royal titles every 5 years, restrictions on commercial use of royal associations, and a digital sovereignty clause preventing former royals from monetizing royal-derived terms without formal approval. This was about far more than Meghan Markle. It was a carefully constructed firewall designed to protect the Crown from anyone who might weaponize a royal title for personal gain. The final draft was completed in September 2025, just 2 months before the public announcement, and even Catherine, Princess of Wales, weighed in. Though not a formal signatory, Catherine reportedly influenced the tone, urging the architects to remain firm but not vindictive, dignified rather than defensive. The goal was surgical justice, not emotional revenge. The final trigger, however, came in the form of a confidential pitch for a new docuseries titled Behind the Crown, which allegedly included scripted reenactments of royal life with dramatized portrayals of living family members. The proposal reached the palace through leaks, bypassing formal channels, and was considered the final straw of the so-called Queen's prophecy. Incredibly, Queen Elizabeth had anticipated this storm long before Charles took action or Order 17A even existed. In her final handwritten notes to her son, she warned, "Be careful of legacy being traded for spectacle," reflecting her deep understanding of the pressures Harry and Meghan would face. Sources close to the late Queen say she recognized that this situation was unlike previous royal crises. Meghan wasn't merely resisting tradition, she was reframing it, rewriting it, and marketing the rewrite to the world. After Harry and Meghan's departure in 2020, Elizabeth corresponded frequently with Charles through trusted aides, offering reflections and warnings rather than directives. One note cautioned, "What one turns into contempt, one no longer honors. Do not confuse silence with surrender." Another, following the Oprah interview, bluntly stated, "They will call it bravery, but we know bravery when we see it." King Charles, reading these words, understood that his mother had foreseen the threat, yet protocol constrained her ability to act. After the Netflix special aired, Elizabeth took what many consider her most decisive step, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead directly to the irrevocable action taken in November 2022, just months before her death. Queen Elizabeth drafted a final memorandum addressed solely to Charles. While its contents were never released publicly, those who glimpsed it described it as deeply personal yet strategically pointed, reportedly giving Charles her full blessing to take whatever action was necessary to protect the future of the Crown, even if it meant severing ties once thought unthinkable. According to a longtime lady-in-waiting, Elizabeth watched parts of the Netflix footage alone and murmured words that would haunt Charles for years. "Mocking the fabric of tradition isn't brave. It's ignorant." That moment stayed with him not as anger, but grief, and it began shaping his own resolve. The Queen never ordered immediate action, believing the weight of the monarchy required patience, not panic, advising Charles to act when it's time, not when it's loud. When she passed later that year, her guidance lingered, becoming Charles's compass. His assurance that he was not merely reacting but fulfilling a legacy. The situation escalated irreversibly with the release of the Netflix series. While the palace initially maintained dignified silence, insiders described the footage as nothing less than emotional warfare in 4K. From the first scene, it was clear this wasn't a documentary seeking understanding. It was a dismantling of the monarchy on an unprecedented global stage. One moment, in particular, reportedly struck Elizabeth harder than any political scandal. Meghan theatrically demonstrating the curtsy she gave the Queen and then laughing. A sacred gesture of centuries of tradition turned into a spectacle for millions worldwide. But for King Charles, the deeper shock was strategic. The series wasn't grief or spontaneous emotion. It was meticulously structured, with 6 episodes of carefully timed story arcs, emotionally charged editing, and cliffhanger accusations designed to spark outrage rather than foster understanding. The program allegedly used royal emblems, private family footage, and even references to confidential protocols without approval, with the Sussex crest appearing throughout. While legal debates swirled over potential violations, Charles saw something far more damning: a betrayal of trust. Public opinion was split, mixed reactions in the UK, warmer reception in the US, but inside Buckingham Palace, the feeling was unambiguous. They called it betrayal. According to those closest to him, Charles was shaken to his core by the Netflix special, describing it in private as emotional warfare, because that's exactly how it felt. These weren't just painful revelations. They were calculated attacks, arriving after months of ignored letters, rejected visits, and failed diplomatic efforts to reconnect. The door didn't close with a bang, it creaked shut slowly, painfully, and deliberately. But what makes this even more heartbreaking is that King Charles didn't immediately move to revoke Meghan's title. He tried. God, did he try? In the wake of the Netflix eruption, he didn't respond with fury. He reached for reconciliation, still believing, perhaps naively, that a bond of blood and shared memory could be salvaged. He wrote personal letters to Harry, no royal headers, no seal, just a father speaking to his son. Weeks passed with no reply. He tried again with a phone call, only to reach voicemail. He asked aides to deliver an invitation for a quiet weekend at Sandringham. No press, no protocols, no obligations, just family. Even that was met with silence. Imagine being a father, extending your hand again and again, only to receive emptiness in return. When a response finally came, it wasn't Harry's voice but a solicitor's letter from California, detached, clinical, full of legal jargon about intellectual property and reputational concerns. What it didn't contain, not once, was Harry's name. No apology, no attempt at reunion, no acknowledgement of the son who had once shared every storm of childhood. In that void, Charles felt something deeper than anger. The final flicker of hope die. Within the palace, silence was not interpreted as peace, it was read as posture. Meghan's strategic distance, her layers of legal intermediaries, and her refusal to engage directly spoke louder than words. She wasn't merely absent, she was fortified. Charles was reportedly emotionally wrecked, his grief raw and exhausted rather than theatrical. Even Princess Anne urged him, if you don't act now, it will be too late, while Prince Edward warned that a crisis of image had become a crisis of precedent. The longer the monarchy allowed itself to be manipulated from abroad, the more it risked surrendering its authority, dignity, and future. The breaking point came with a formal notice from Meghan's attorneys, detailing alleged financial damages linked to anticipated changes in title usage. It wasn't the content that struck Charles, it was what it represented. There was no mention of Harry, no appeal for understanding, only the cold calculus of brand equity. The monarchy had extended its hand. It received a bill in return. Charles realized he was no longer dealing with a daughter-in-law. He was dealing with a brand, a commodification of royalty. Behind the public statements of privacy and healing, a different reality was unfolding in Los Angeles. Trademark filings for Sussex Global Holdings LLC appeared as early as January 2021, listing ventures across publishing, media, fashion, digital platforms, and wellness. Meghan's public grievances were not spontaneous outpourings, they were strategically timed. Explosive interviews, book launches, essays, Spotify announcements, Netflix specials, and international tours followed one another with precise synchronization, turning personal pain into currency for the Sussex brand. Internal palace legal teams meticulously documented the use of the royal crest without permission, stylized Duchess references in foreign contracts, and events implying royal endorsements. The frequency and consistency of these actions alarmed officials. This was not confusion or misstep, it was execution. As one advisor bluntly noted, the crown has survived divorce, abdication, and scandal, but it has never faced commodification. For the first time in its 1,000-year history, the British monarchy confronted an existential threat: royalty repackaged, distributed, and sold globally. Behind palace gates, the mood grew grim. Meghan's enterprise was no longer a private reinvention. It was a rebranding of the institution without consent. Perhaps most heartbreakingly, Harry, once lively and unguarded, had grown insulated, subdued, and distant. Letters from Charles went unanswered. Invitations from William quietly declined. Even Catherine's attempt at a private meeting in the US met with silence. Within palace circles, the phrase "lost to the narrative" began to circulate. Harry had not just grown distant, he had become fully entwined in the global brand his wife had built. The monarchy's greatest fear was unfolding before them. Not merely that Meghan had left, but that she was constructing her own palace, one with worldwide reach, media dominance, and the Sussex title emblazoned across its gates. The final blow came in the early hours of December 1, 2025, just one day after the public announcement. And the day following the public announcement, a royal courier delivered a letter to California. Handwritten and sealed with the monarch's crest, it contained words that King Charles refused to let any advisor or aide touch. This was not a decree or protocol, it was a father's final goodbye. Drafted in solitude long after the signatures on Order 17A had dried, Charles insisted on writing it himself, not as king or head of state, but as a father who had exhausted every path to peace. According to sources who have seen it, the letter was tender yet firm, a confession of heartbreak, a plea for clarity, a line drawn not out of vengeance but out of necessity. Charles told Harry that while he still loved him, the actions taken were not against a person, they were against a distortion. Unlike the polished press statement, this letter bore no palace restraint. It was raw and unfiltered. He admitted that he had waited too long to act, hoping Meghan would one day return not merely to the family, but to its values. He wrote of the pain caused by mockery, strategic silences, and legal barricades, yet ended with a sentence heavy with both regret and hope. The door remains open to the son I knew, if he ever returns without the mask. That masked the brand, the performance, the carefully curated image replacing the authentic Harry was what grieved him most. Hours later, the monarchy sealed the moment quietly. At Windsor Castle, for officials placed a parchment card marked Duchess of Sussex into the legacy vault and stamped it ceased by royal directive. That vault had not been opened for title removal since 1936, and now it held one more chapter. Meanwhile, back in Montecito, Meghan's team responded swiftly with a carefully worded, cold statement emphasizing her commitment to equity, compassion, and family values. Beautiful, corporate words, meaningless to those who understood the stakes. Nowhere in the statement was Charles acknowledged. Nowhere was Harry's father mentioned. To palace insiders, it confirmed that this was no longer about family, but about branding, legacy, and leverage. Yet while the world fixated on loss, a quiet transformation was occurring within the palace. Lady Louise Windsor, daughter of Prince Edward and granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth, began quietly stepping forward. Unlike Meghan, she did not seek headlines or controversy. Throughout late 2025, she accompanied Princess Anne on engagements across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire, taking on royal duties not with entitlement but with measured resolve, demonstrating that while one branch of the family pursued fame and commerce, another was quietly upholding tradition and service. Though the public, Lady Louise Windsor's quiet emergence felt like the return of something long lost: humility, reverence, and authentic service. Princess Anne had reportedly handpicked Louise as part of a long-term strategy, understanding that for the monarchy to survive in the digital age, it needed more than tradition. It required continuity, authenticity, and loyalty beyond the lure of influence. Discussions within the Royal Advisory Council even considered restoring a title once promised but never fully granted the Duchess of Edinburgh. Bestowing it upon Louise would send a clear signal. The future of the monarchy would be shaped by duty and service, not celebrity or spectacle. Public response was swift. Polling indicated a surge of approval for Lady Louise, with many calling her the royal they wished they had known earlier. Where Meghan offered drama and branding, Louise offered silence and steadfastness, and in that contrast, the monarchy began reclaiming its narrative. Catherine, Princess of Wales, remained silent publicly but was seen wearing the Prince of Wales brooch at a children's charity event the very next day, a quiet emblem of resilience. William, when asked privately, said something that cut deep. "This isn't about who we love. It's about what we protect." Princess Anne returned to duty the following morning, with no comment, no pause, only presence. The truth is clear. King Charles did not act out of anger or vengeance, but out of necessity. After years of attempts, months of investigation, and every exhausted effort at reconciliation, his actions drew a decisive line between serving the institution and exploiting it. The monarchy survived this crisis not through spectacle, but through something far more powerful: consistency, presence, and duty. While Meghan may have lost her title, the deeper question remains: what did she truly lose, and what did she ever truly possess? Titles can be revoked, but integrity, character, and genuine commitment to something greater than oneself cannot be granted or taken by decree. In the days following the announcement, the palace established the Windsor Integrity Office to monitor title usage, brand affiliations, and public narratives, signaling a new chapter where tradition would be actively defended. As King Charles looked over the frost-covered gardens of Highgrove, witnesses say he did not speak of victory or vindication. Instead, he whispered something simpler, more profound: a vow to restore what was lost and safeguard what remained. The monarchy had spoken, and this time, it would not be silenced.